and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the brand new edition, the fresh off the presses, the Weekly Hero, here for your perusal. I, of course, am one of your hosts. My name's John Campea, and joining me, as always, the host of the brand new YouTube series. Yes, it's online now. Robservations, Mr. Robert Meyer-Burnett here. Robert, how you doing, man?
John, it's great to see you this week. You know, I saw that you went to IMAX headquarters with Olympic gold medalist Cody Miller.
Yeah. Actually, I had an invitation from IMAX to come to this event that they were doing for Fantastic Beasts 2: The Crimes of Grindelwald. So Anne, my wife, she's the Potterhead in our family. Now, I like the Harry Potter movies. I'm not a Potterhead, but she was out of the country. So I didn't have anybody to bring. So, you know, I jumped on social media and I said to my husband, for all my real friends out there, any of you are major Potterheads, I need to bring a +1. I get a call from Cody Miller.
Doesn't he live in a different state?
He lives in Indiana. He lives in Indiana. Cody Miller, you got to understand, Cody is a major Potterhead.
And a geek, of all things.
Major geek, major Potterhead, super knowledgeable about film and entertainment. But anyway, he and his wife, Allie, they have 115 Harry Potter Pops, Funko Pops. Most people don't have 115 Funko Pops. He's got 115 just of the Harry Potter series. So he calls me up and he says, do you still got that +1? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you mind if I crash at your place for a night? I'm like, you fly to? He goes, yeah, dude, I will fly out there from Indiana so I can come to this screening of Fantastic Beasts with you. I'm like, dude, do it. He flew from Indiana. The screening was Thursday night. He flew in Thursday morning, flew right back out Friday morning.
That is the greatest thing ever.
It was fun. And, you know, it gave us a show. First of all, you know, me and Cody have been talking for a long time about doing something fun. And as a side note, you and I have been talking about doing something else. So then the three of us started talking, you, me, and Cody, about, I think there's something kind of fun we could do here. So not announcing anything today, but keep your headphones on for a little announcement coming soon about a little something that me and Cody and Robert are going to be getting into a little bit of trouble. So that ought to be fun.
Do we have to train? Like, do we have to go with his training regimen?
Oh, God. Have you ever watched one of his YouTube videos, his training regimen?
Yes.
That dude's insane.
Insanity.
Like Rocky, because Creed's coming out here pretty soon. Rocky got nothing on Cody Miller and those Olympic swimmers.
I just don't know if I can do that.
No, I couldn't. I absolutely couldn't. No way. No chance. Actually, he came in here and we were here for 5 minutes. It's like, oh, I've been sitting still for 5 minutes. His like watch goes off. He goes, and he pulls out this huge exercise roller mat. He goes, is there a spot on the floor? And he's like, for like an hour, just doing muscle rolls and all this kind of stuff. Because he's just like, it's just stupid. It's ridiculous. Get a life, dude. Get a life. Anyway, hey, we got a lot of stuff to talk here about on the Weekly Hero. And obviously, the big thing in the world of comic books, comic book movies, television, pop culture as a whole, that was affected this week. Of course, the passing at the age of 95, Stan Lee. And, you know, it's been, for me, and I was talking about this on my show the other day, it's been a little bittersweet. At first, you know, very sad to hear it.
Yeah.
But you get sad and you start thinking about all the things he did. But as soon as I start thinking about all the things he did, I just got a smile on my face. And about celebrating the life. Because this guy has lived a life that very few people ever will. And it reminded me of sitting on a couch with him at Comic-Con a couple of years ago. And, you know, he sneezed or something. And one of his friends, he wasn't talking to me directly, but one of his friends said, oh, Stan, you got to be careful. Got to watch your health. And he said, well, you know what? I've had a good run. Like that was just his thing. I've had a good run. And that was years ago. But, you know, Robert, this was a guy who I don't even think most people understand the influence and the way he shaped our entire pop culture, let alone the MCU, the comic book industry, the narrative storytelling industry as a whole. Anyway, your reactions and thoughts when you heard about the passing of Stan Lee.
Well, of course, I've been going to Comic-Con for 30 years, and I've met him and hung out with him a number of times. I used to be on this show on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was like a news show called SF Vortex. And Roger Lodge, the host of Blind Date, hosted this show. And at the end of every episode, there was this thing called the War Room. And they would bring in, there was like 3 of us, and we would discuss topics of the day. And I was on with Stan Lee. We were on once, and we were talking about if they ever made a Spider-Man movie. Because there was talk that James Cameron was going to make a Spider-Man movie.
Right.
And we got into a little bit of a tiff. We got into a bit of an argument. And he goes, it doesn't matter who plays Spider-Man. I mean, anybody could be under the mask. And I said, but Stan, isn't it really important who plays Peter Parker? Isn't that? And so we went back and forth about it. And at the end of the episode, he goes, I think you're from Krypton. And I was like, from Krypton? What? But he was the warmest, nicest guy. And I think nobody loved his fans more than he did.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I think for a guy, look, he was in the Marvel bullpen. He created so many of your favorite characters. But he was, for a long time, and he talked about this, he didn't get any respect. The New York literati, they never, what do you do, Stan? Oh, I publish Marvel Comics.
There was a long period of time during those formative years that people being involved in the comic book industry they would look down their nose as like they were doing porn or something.
Yeah, even worse than that, because that wasn't for adults, it was for kids.
Yeah.
But I think it was great that he lived long enough to see, can you imagine what it must have been like for him to sit in a theater and watch Infinity War?
Oh, God. Or even just go back to that first Spider-Man movie.
Oh, yeah.
Or X-Men, the first X-Men movie, which came before it. I mean, that's astounding.
Which began his tradition of cameoing in the Marvel Universe movies. I just can't imagine a guy like him who makes that journey, from sitting in a bullpen with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and creating these characters on paper. Basically, comics were disposable. You'd read them every month, chuck them.
Right.
He didn't know there was going to be people going to collect them the way they do now, and then to see those characters writ large on the big screen, I mean, it must have just astonished him. There must be some days when he got up and went, I made those characters, and now look where they are.
And it's beyond that, not just to see what happened, but there's been such an evolution, right? From the days that he was working out of a single office when the only game in town was DC with Superman, and they were this spunky little startup with Marvel, right?
Right.
To see it transform to, first of all, the comic industry going through all the evolutionary stages it did, to hitting some kind of big boom, Marvel overtakes DC, all this kind of stuff. Then the first movies and this explosion movies, like, it's not like he was just around for this one big event.
Right.
He, in his lifetime, got to see the complete evolution from starting in that little office to now being the undisputed biggest genre in entertainment in the world today. I mean, it's crazy what he got to see and live through. It's funny. I've been talking a lot about this book lately, and if you haven't read it, I highly recommend. One of my viewers recommended to me once on an open mic. They said, John, have you read Slugfest, the 50-year war between Marvel and DC?
I have not, but I'll read that.
That's exactly what was my reaction. I haven't even heard of that, but that sounds amazing. I instantly, while on the air, I went to Amazon, looked it up. I'm like, done. I downloaded the audiobook the next day. I listened to the whole thing in 3 days. And I knew a lot of stuff, but there's so much in there that I never knew. And the stories about how, when he was starting out, the comic book industry at the time really was seen as being strictly for kids. You had the big boys on the block, which was DC Comics, where every week it was Spider-Man gets your villain of the week, a little crime to solve, solves the crime, sends the criminal to jail, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Right.
And what Stan Lee did with Marvel and the partnership of many of the people who worked with him, and we don't want to lose sight of that, but what Stan Lee did over at Marvel, though, he started making the stories in the comics far more relatable. Like, I remember, it was the first time, and I can't remember what the two characters were, when these two characters argued with each other. Two heroes argued with each other in comics. And it's like, I remember reading about this thing, it blew everybody's minds.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, this guy's life isn't perfect? They were the first ones. He was the first guy to introduce the idea of a comic book character talking about problems that they have in life.
Yeah.
Which ultimately led to Spider-Man, a superhero who had nothing but problems all the time.
Right.
And it's like, and that was the evolution of it. I don't know who wrote this book. I don't know. I got nothing to do with this book. I highly recommend it though, but it's really eye-opening to see and realizing just how much of Stan Lee's DNA is all over our pop culture today.
All over the pop. And the funny thing is like in the 70s, they started, DC was doing, there was a Green Lantern and Green Arrow hit the road together.
Right.
And they traveled across America, and Speedy, became my ward Speedy. I remember the cover. It's a Neil Adams cover. Is a junkie, and you see like Speedy's addicted to heroin, and,
right?
Because in this, they were trying to make them socially conscious and much more relevant. And then watching what happened in the '80s to all these characters, how they became really much more adult oriented.
Yeah.
That's when Alex Ross hit the scene with when Marvels came out, which was unbelievable. The Marvel universe from the perspective of a man on the street. All that stuff it's just incredible to watch the last 40 years of comic history because it's really fascinating. And Stan Lee was there for all of it.
Yeah, so I mean, passes away at the age of 95, and it's like, this is how big of an influence he had. I listen to ESPN radio every day as I'm driving into the studio because I'm a sports guy, right? The show I listen to, Mike and, well, it used to be Mike and Golick. It used to be, but now it's Mike and, I can't remember the name of the show now, but I listen to it every morning. These two guys in ESPN, it used to be Mike and Mike, now it's Mike and somebody else. And it's an all sports show, and they're like, today we're going to talk about Stan Lee. And we want to know what your favorite superhero characters are. And on ESPN.
Right.
That's all they wanted to talk about was Stan Lee and his influence and what he did. I mean, it's just, and again, one of the things they mentioned is like, it's not a sad thing. It's not like this is a guy who got cut short in the prime of his life or whatever. This guy lived in 95 and God bless him and all that kind of stuff.
He was married to his wife for like 70 years.
Oh, I know. And I was so sad when she passed away, but it's just like, wow. I mean, really, what this guy did and what he's accomplished.
And by the end of his life, he was still running around Comic-Con, crossing the convention floor from one side to the other. He was making himself available. I don't think he ever, judging by my Facebook and Twitter feeds, there was never a photo op he didn't take with somebody.
Yep.
Like he must have taken 100 million photographs with people. How great is that? Later in life, you have this kind of adulation, and you always have a smile on your face. I'm sure there were times when he might have been a little tired. You'd never know.
Yeah, and can you imagine, because you're talking about how active he was with his fans, like back in the day. Can you imagine if social media had been around when Stan Lee was publishing Marvel Comics? Can you, he was doing social media before there was social media in many different ways.
Well, he also had, he had the Marvel No Prize. You'd write in a letter and the bullpen, and he actually was one of the first people. There's a what if story. Like, what if the Marvel bullpen was the Fantastic Four? I think it's like, what if, I don't know if it's like 10 or something. But he actually was the first person, I think, that brought an awareness on the part of the audience for the creators of these things, and he sort of cultivated that in the letters of comment, the letter sections that used to be in the back of comics, and his phrase "Nuff said" or "Excelsior" or any of that stuff.
It all came from.
That was all him.
Yeah.
And he created that relationship that we as readers have with the creators, even to this day. And I think that's something that it will never go away.
Now, I remember there was a story about a year ago that the idea was, hey, Stan's in his 90s. To get him to fly out to Atlanta every time we want, Atlanta or wherever godforsaken place they were shooting another Marvel movie, to get him to fly over the country every single time we wanted to do a cameo is getting to be kind of unreasonable.
Right.
And they said, this, as the story goes, and I don't know if the story is valid, but as the story goes, they decided, let's get him out once and film like 5 or 6 different little things with him that we can take and chop those in, right? And I've never really known 100%. I think that's true. I don't know 100% for sure that's true, but I hope it is. And either way, can you imagine what the movie theater is going to be like when Captain Marvel comes out? And they shot a Stan Lee cameo for Captain Marvel. When that movie comes out, the first moment that Stan Lee pops up on screen, can you imagine the atmosphere in that theater? It's going to be like being at the Super Bowl. I think I'm anticipating when that guy comes on screen, when Stan Lee makes his first appearance, I think you are going to see the epitome of the phrase, the crowd goes wild.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a huge celebratory thing. And then I think that's only going to be topped when Avengers 4 comes out and we see his cameo in that.
Well, I keep thinking about Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q in the James Bond franchise. I think I'm not quite sure. I forget which. It might have been Tomorrow Never Dies, where he you see Desmond Llewellyn sort of descend in this elevator, this hole in the floor, and he's kind of looking up, and it's his swan song. Desmond Llewellyn's no longer going to be Q in any Bond film. I think whatever they do in Avengers 4, I'm sure they figured something out. It's going to be, I'm going to lose it. Like,
oh yeah,
it's going to be heart-wrenching.
Yeah, and Captain Marvel comes even before that. And so I do think we're going to see cameos both in that, because in Spider-Man Homecoming is wrap shooting.
Right.
So you've got to assume, even if that story about them shooting 5 or 6 cameos in advance isn't true, and I think it is, but even if it isn't, you know he shot his cameo for Captain Marvel, you know he shot his cameo for Avengers 4, and you know he shot his cameo for Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yep.
And I cannot wait for those movies, but I cannot wait to be in that theater when his cameo comes on. Because it's going to be electric. It's going to be nuts.
I wonder if they knew which one was going to be his last. Like, they shot it out, and I wonder if his last one, if he does look at the camera, maybe not break the fourth wall, but he actually says Excelsior.
Oh,
like, wouldn't that be cool?
That would be pretty cool.
That'd be pretty cool.
All right. Well, listen, guys, we'd love to know, what is your favorite moment? The Stan Lee moment, whether it's going back decades to something pivotal he did in the industry. Maybe your favorite Stan Lee moment is one of the many cameos that he did. His Deadpool one is still my all-time favorite cameo of his. What was yours?
I think when he was hanging out with the Watchers.
Oh, in Guardians 2. And he actually references that time I was a postal man or something.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I'm like, Stan Lee is a Watcher. You know, okay.
It's so perfect. So perfect. All right. Let's move on now to the next item here. You know, we talked about this the other day, but we talked about Venom last week.
Right.
And the crazy success it had, topping $550 million, topped the $500 million mark, which a lot of people never thought was going to happen. I mean, if I had a nickel for every person who said to me, Venom's gonna flop, I mean, I'd be a rich man. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people started asking me, and they said, John, do you think now that Venom can maybe catch Justice League? Which was, of course, sitting around $650 million. I said, well, no. I mean, the only real market it's got left to open in is China. And that's a big market, but I don't see it doing like $100+ million in China. So, no, I think we just need to be, I think fans of the Venom movie just need to be happy with where it came in. It's not going to catch Justice League. Boom. Flies by Justice League.
Yeah.
And then right now officially sits at $670 something million worldwide. Very well could catch Deadpool 2. I mean, it's flirting with $700 million right now. And so, but what kind of became the story is a lot of people started using that story as an example of, well, look how much of a failure Justice League is. But no, that's not the point. Just look, for all of its shortcomings or whatever, Justice League, granted it should have been $1 billion film, granted it should have flirted with $2 billion, it made $650 million. Make no mistake about it. Any movie is happy to make $650 million.
Yes, especially on its budget.
Yes. It's not an issue of, look how bad Justice League did. It's like, look at how great Venom has done. Let me ask you something. Does the fact that this movie has now gone beyond what we even talked about last week, is now approaching that $700 million mark, which doesn't just put it past Justice League, by the way, it puts it past a hell of a lot of MCU films as well. It passed Ant-Man and the Wasp, which came out hot on the heels of Avengers Infinity War. I mean, what does a result like this, making like $111 million in China, taking it up to where it is, how does this alter or change or affect your perception of the overall success and the run of Venom and what this could mean moving forward?
Well, I think, look, I have a theory about this. My theory is that Venom is a very comic book character. He's very comic booky.
It's true. And
I think, especially in foreign markets, the wackiness of Venom, like, he's never been my favorite character. Not any time in the run of Spider-Man. But for people, there's something inherently that it sort of touches your inner child. Watching Venom out, use his powers and get all wacky. That's something people wanted to see. And the movie might not have been the English Patient of superhero movies, but I think Ray
Fiennes didn't pop up or anything.
No, and I think though that it gave people a certain goofy, vicarious thrill that has been sort of Infinity War did that for me. Like, I got my, oh my God, this is the most comic book movie ever, because it was like reading one of the great crossovers. Right. But movies have been relatively serious. I mean, there's been funny ones like Guardians, but Venom really sort of encapsulated the goofiness and the fun of that character. And I think the people that went to see it liked Venom since they were kids, and they got what they wanted. They might not have gotten the serious movie that they expected or were used to, but they got the goofy fun that Venom could deliver. And Tom Hardy's clearly having some goofy fun making that movie.
Yeah, he did.
And it's there, and I think it was a refreshing change of pace. So I'm going to be curious how Sony's going to move forward. Are they going to deliver like a Deadpool 2 and go with Carnage, and who knows what they're going to, and make it even wackier? You know, who knows? I don't know. But whenever a movie succeeds, it's good for everybody.
Yeah, and that's actually a great point. When it works for everybody. It raises the profile for everything. But you know, the funny thing is, when you get to numbers like approaching 700 million worldwide, the really interesting phenomena of Venom was when you get to numbers that big, it's not just the people who grew up having fun with Venom.
Right.
It's people who had no idea who the hell Venom was. And there was something in the marketing campaign that appealed to them. And I don't know if it's the fact that it's kind of a guy who's traditionally been the bad guy and they're bringing him and doing that. I don't know if it was the notion that we're going to have a hero that's going to eat people. Right. Which because there is a significant body count in this movie,
and there's also a horror element to it. So
yes,
I think it appeals to maybe the horror crowd who always thumb their noses at perhaps superhero movies. They had something, you know.
Yep.
I think there's audience members that might have been a little prejudicial against the comic book film. They might have gone and had more fun than they possibly imagined. So I think there was a lot more appeal. Like you said, it's gone beyond just the comic book fan base, or maybe the comic book fan base has just become so big that it could support a film like Venom.
Well, and to your point, they've now clearly struck a nerve with this movie, right? They've clearly struck a nerve. So you brought up, where do they go? But you went right to Venom 2. I've got a more immediate question than where do they go? How do you handle Morbius, the living vampire, at this point? Like, clearly, the whole thing about this guy, the traditional villain, the all in black, I'm eating people. Morbius, who has been a hero in the comics, as has Venom. This, in some artist's interpretation of him, a very horrific looking character.
Yes.
Do they go for that same balance of those elements with the humor and fun and goofiness and try to retouch that DNA again? Or do you do something? You're in charge of Sony right now. You've just seen the nerve you struck with Venom. How do you approach Morpheus if you're in charge?
Well, you know, I think that we've seen great horror shows, whether it was True Blood, whether it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We've seen elements of comedy and horror and real horror, real extreme horror work. And I think Morbius has to be, he can't be just a goofy, funny character. He's got to be a kick-ass Lost Boys.
Not one of those Rob Schneiders who woke up. He woke up as a vampire.
No. And we've got What We Do in the Shadows is going to take care of the guffaw.
By the way, that's so good.
The movie's good and the TV show looks great. I think they're going to make Morbius into like more of a Lestat, like what the vampire Lestat would have been if they had done the book. They're going to make him kick ass. And now that Venom exists, now that an alien symbiote can take over a human being successfully, we can now have vampires. Just like I never believed that Captain America could ever exist in a movie world with Thor. How are they going to make much less Guardians of the Galaxy? But now it all works. Now Sony's going to be able to build. You know, I always thought that Sinister Six thing was a bad idea. I don't anymore. They can make it work. They can make the different tones work. We could see.
Man, I don't know. I think Sony might be a little like gun shy when it comes to the idea of Sinister Six, because the last time they tried to put together a Sinister Six, it blew up in their faces.
It did, but now they got Venom, and if they get Kraven right and they get Morbius, the living vampire, right?
But Sony's portraying them as heroes. They're portraying Venom as a hero.
I know.
Morbius is going to be a hero. Kraven's probably going to be an anti-hero like them. Is that truly your Sinister Six?
No.
And that's a superhero. The Sinister Six is now a superhero team.
But it could be your Suicide Squad.
That's true.
You know, I mean, it really depends. I mean, it's such a weird. The real thing they have to nail is tone.
Yeah.
And I thought Venom, the tone was all over the place, but somehow, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the movie, but it was fun. Like I look back on it and go, if I was like 12 years old, this movie would have been the best thing I'd ever seen. I don't know.
Well, dude, I am not 12 years old. It's not the best thing I've ever seen. I mean, I thought the first act was way too slow. I'm not very big on who the antagonist was, blah, blah, blah. But, man, I had far more fun than anybody had any business being in that movie.
Right?
So let's see where they go with this thing. But congratulations to everybody at Sony doing... No way can a Venom movie without Spider-Man make any money. And yet, here we are. So let's see where can they follow it up, though? That's now the question. Can you follow it up? You can catch lightning in a bottle. Can you follow it up? Let's see what Sony's got there. All right, we've got another little topic here to talk about here. But before we do, we have a weekly kind of tradition here on the Weekly Hero because, Rob here is one of the great collectors. He collects. He's got a great eye for collectibles and things like that. And every week he brings in something special for us to look at. And this week might be the best thing he's ever brought in. Rob, tell us about this alien sitting on our table.
Now, this is, of course, Kal-El from the planet Krypton, who many of you know as either Clark Kent or Superman. Being that this year, 2018, is the 40th anniversary of Superman the movie. Yeah. And Warner Home Video just released the 4K of Superman the movie. On 4K UHD disc, I figured this is an older Hot Toys figure. I want to say it's like 6 or 7 years old now. So the facial sculpt, I think it's a great likeness of Christopher Reeve.
It is.
But it doesn't have the realism that Hot Toys has brought to their facial sculpts over the last couple of years. Obviously, it doesn't have that. But I think the costume
still looks remarkable.
It's so on point, and I love the stand with the Kryptonian, the crystals.
So good.
The Fortress of Solitude stand, and I just think this is a very sought after figure. It in the secondary market, it's not cheap. They also made an evil Superman from Superman 3.
Oh,
so it's
the drunk Superman with the dirty costume.
They gave him a dirty suit.
Oh my gosh.
And I never got that figure. One day I'll probably have to get that figure. But I love this figure. I figured you'd ask me. You said, why don't you bring in more of a traditional superhero figure? And I'm like, you know what? It is heroes after all. It's the Weekly Hero. Why don't we get the Weekly Hero a hero? The best hero, the greatest hero.
And what a hero. And you know what? It's funny. When you got in here today, you pulled him out of the box. And I took him from you, and I was just staring at him because I think the facial sculpt, you're right, it's an older one, but I still think it looks amazing.
It's great.
And then you pulled out the Fortress of Solitude base.
Yeah.
That thing works so perfectly. The synergy between the figure and its base is so on point with this thing. It just makes it beautiful to look at.
I mean, other than chairs, the thing that I love to get most is cool stands.
Right.
They can and Hot Toys has been really upping their game. They've got these like bendy metal stands that you can now suspend, like the Henry Cavill Superman figure. You can make him flying. Like
my Kal-El figure, my Jor-El figure.
Yeah, he's got that too. I've got Zod and my Man of Steel figure flying at each other. Like
why have I not seen that one yet?
Oh, I can bring those in.
Yeah, I'll bring you in next week. Bring this in.
I'll bring great figures. Great, but it's always fun. It's fun to bring these and bring them out.
Quick question. Only available secondary market, obviously. What do you think Christopher there goes for on the secondary market right now?
I would say $400 or $500. I was
worth
shocked.
Every penny.
That Akira bike,
right?
$2,500.
Yeah, because you guessed. I asked you about that Akira bike, and you guessed 1,000. And then later in that evening, Robert sends me this. Sends me a text message with a screenshot of it's $2,500 now.
I was blown away by that. I was like, wow. But again, these toys, if they're 10 years old, they only make a certain amount, and then they're gone. So
all right. Well, listen, we'll look forward to what you're going to bring in next week. Okay. Let's move over now to the small screen when it comes to our superhero universe. Of course, one of the coolest things going on in television is the Arrowverse. Some of the shows are hit and miss and all that kind of stuff, yes, but I believe DC, where you can make a very compelling argument that Marvel has kind of been trumping DC when it comes to the big screen stuff, I would contend that I think Daredevil notwithstanding, that the DC stuff they've been doing on television has kind of trumped the Marvel stuff a bit.
Yeah.
And I've had a good time. Now, one of the things that people look forward to the most every year is, of course, the crossover event. They've been doing that since Flash had its premiere. Mm-hmm. The crossover event. Last year, Crisis on Earth X, best thing in comic book television that year.
It was so cool.
It was so fun. This year, they're doing, what's it called? It's called... I'm losing the name of it. It's like Elseworld. I think it's Elseworlds, right? So we've seen some pictures we saw Stephen Amell tweet out a picture of him in the Flash costume. He just said, "I am the Flash." Like, what? 2 teasers dropped this week. One with Stephen Amell waking up as Barry Allen. And he's like, what? And then one just dropped today, I believe, with Barry Allen waking up as the Arrow.
Right.
Your thoughts on these teasers?
Well, it's what I love about all of the shows is there's a joy to watching them. There really is. There's not. Yes, they've got villains, and yes, they've gotten crazy with multiple parallel universes and how many times they're going to do Flashpoint, sort of again. But it's still fun. There's a tone that's sort of joyous and buoyant, and even when Arrow gets as dark as it gets, which isn't.
He's in prison
dark.
Right now.
Yeah, I mean,
he's getting shanked in prison right now.
So it's dark, but it's still it's still fun.
Right.
And they're going to introduce Batwoman.
Right.
And I just these shows are I don't know how much life they have left to them. I mean, Flash and Arrow, I don't know if they're played out or are they going to do more. But you know what? If you want some entertaining superhero action, the CW shows are where it's at, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think
this looks great. I mean, body shifting. It's like Face Off when Nicolas Cage got to play John Travolta and John Travolta got to play Nicolas Cage in John Woo's movie.
One of my great guilty pleasure movies of all time is Face Off. Flash
should be guilty.
Should just be awesome. The Flash this season, I was late getting started on Flash because I've been so backed up on the stuff I need to watch.
Right.
The Flash this season to me is a big, big step up over the Flash last season because I've been a big fan of the Flash, but I was not happy with the whole, what was the name of the villain last year? The Thinker, is that what they called him or something? I just, DeVoe, I never got into him. I thought it was just kind of a mess of a season. This season, they've got a much better villain.
Yeah.
I've been completely bought in more. I've really been digging this whole angle about their daughter from the future has come back. I've been digging that. And I love the way you describe. I never thought of it that way. The way you just described is perfect. There's a joy that they put in their shows.
Right.
When they work, when they don't work, but they put just fun. They want these shows to be joyous events, watch and have fun and smile. And it's worked for them.
I mean, compared to like Titans, where they've turned like Robin, Dick Grayson is a murderous thug. He's stabbing people and killing people. And I'm like, it's funny because normally I wouldn't be so against something like that, but I love the original Titans, the Marv Wolfman, George Perez run of Titans. That was my jam. It's one of my favorite. And it just seems like the darkness, it was the Titans that to me always brought light into the comic book universe, even when Trigon and when they dealt with demons and horrible things like Brother Blood, who's a cult leader, and Mother Mayhem, stuff was crazy. But it was still not dark, and the Titans are so dark.
I haven't even started watching yet. I just need.
It's not that it's bad,
right?
But it's just like Robin is really brutalizing people, and I normally would be like, bring it on, but I mean, he's basically curb stomping people and stabbing their groins.
Well, see, now you're actually getting me interested.
Right?
Now I'm actually interested. Now you're selling me on it,
and it's perfectly cast, by the way.
Right.
The role is great.
I just can't bring myself because look, trailers mean something. Sometimes they're accurate, sometimes they're completely not accurate, but they do affect us. And when that Titans trailer dropped at Comic-Con, it was you could hear it was almost like thunder across the sky as everybody there slapped their heads at the same time. Because this trailer dropped and you could just hear it's like, "Ay," and you just heard like it was garbage. That trailer was awful. Now, thankfully, I'm hearing from other people that, hey, you know what? Yeah, the trailer was bad, but the show's not bad. But I just can't bring myself to subscribe to the DC streaming service when that's really the only thing they got right now.
Right.
I'm very fascinated by this Swamp Thing that they're going to be doing.
And Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol, yes.
I can't believe we have Doom Patrol on TV. I'm just like, wow.
So once they start getting more stuff on there, you'll probably see me getting the service, and I'll give that a shot. But for now, what we got for DC on television is this DC crossover, and we got the crossover event coming. And I got to tell you, they've been striking all the notes right. I'm intrigued with this. I can't wait to see it. So it's coming up pretty quick, too.
Yeah, I know.
It's coming up pretty fast, so we're going to get to see it really soon. All right, let's go on to our final topic here today. And we're going to talk a little bit. Let's jump back to the big screen here. We've got a movie coming out. We just mentioned Captain Marvel. It's going to be probably our first Stan Lee cameo that we see post Stan's passing.
Yeah.
But, somebody brought this up. One of my viewers brought this up the other day. And I wanted to throw it by you because I really like to know your insight on this. There seems to be a lack of energy and excitement surrounding this Captain Marvel project. And I'm not going to say it's been invisible. I'd say it probably has the same amount that Ant-Man and the Wasp did, blah, blah. But, you know, when you compare to like the buzz and the anticipation leading into like a Black Panther or something like that, that just doesn't seem to be there. Now, the trailer dropped and it was well received, but not overwhelmingly positively received. But, you know, it's just somebody made the observation the other day, you know, I'm not really sensing the buzz. I'm not sensing that excitement, the same kind that we had as we were approaching Black Panther. What do you attribute? First of all, do you feel that? And if so, what do you attribute it to right now?
I do feel that way. And I think I was, to be honest, I love the way Captain Marvel looks.
Oh,
I love the
great.
costumes, and I love the supporting cast as they always, these Marvel movies are so extraordinarily well cast. I think what's missing from the movie is there's nothing in it that's intellectually interesting to your audience. You've seen it all kind of before. Okay, she's a test pilot. We got a little bit of that in Green Lantern. You know, hate to say it, but we didn't see enough of the Kree or the Skrull or what's going on. We don't know enough of the plot. It just seems like we're seeing elements that we've seen in other movies. Now, I know a lot about that character, so I'm really curious. What the snippets they've shown are very cool. They're intriguing to me. But what's the plot? You know, she comes to Earth, she meets Nick Fury. Well, that's cool, but we've seen Nick Fury interact with every other character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I just don't think they've shown us enough of the movie yet where we can get excited because of the stuff that happens in it. Whereas, because I want to know, like, you get a glimpse of Jude Law as Mar-Vell if he's being cagey. I saw him promoting Crimes of Grindelwald, and he wasn't saying that he's Mar-Vell. Are you Marvel? He's like, I can't say who I'm playing. You know, and okay, we just don't know. I don't think we know enough. I think they need to come out with a kick-ass trailer. Like, I just saw the new trailer that dropped for Battle Angel Alita. Or Alita Battle Angel.
So good.
Yeah, that trailer is so different than what we've seen before, and you're like, okay, now I'm intellectually interested. Here's a story I want to know. What's going to happen? I've got enough of a plot now in my mind going, oh, I get where this movie's going and where it came from. I don't think we have that with Captain Marvel yet. I think in the next trailer, we're going to be like, okay, this looks great. But it isn't like, I remember that first Guardians trailer when they're all lined up, you know, call them a-holes. And it was just them lying. It was so, all of that was so funny. And it didn't even matter what the movie was about. You love those characters because of that trailer. Captain Marvel right now is a generic superhero. We need to see her. We need to have her coming out guns blazing. You know, Black Panther, you just looked at Chad Boseman in that costume. He was badass. You want to see more of what that guy was going to do. But okay, so we have Captain Marvel. She's powerful, really powerful. But so she's blasting on the top of a train. We saw Spider-Man in a train and the first Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 2. What have they shown us that's new?
But see, it's interesting because, like,
but by the way, trust in Kevin Feige.
Oh, well, always trust Kevin Feige. But here's the thing. There is a pattern emerging in Hollywood. First trailer doesn't really tell you anything.
Right.
We saw that with Alita Battle. The first trailer I thought was bad, to be frank with you.
Yes.
But then the second trailer came. I'm like, all right, now I'm on board. Now this new one came out. I'm like, yeah, now I'm completely sold on it. So, like, there's an understanding that, okay, they don't want to give everything away in the first trailer. We know the second one will probably be a lot more substantial. But to the point that you were making, there have been other movies that have given us first trailers without a ton of substance to them. You mentioned Guardians. You mentioned Black Panther. And yet, there was still that energy and that excitement and everything. I mean, I'm great. The Guardians thing is nothing really new. It's a usual suspects lineup, and it's just they're a bunch of a-holes. Okay, fine.
But we hadn't seen that in a Marvel universe. We hadn't seen people swearing. We hadn't seen people, even the characters, the Nova Corps was being disdainful of the Guardians. Like, who are these yo-yos? And they sort of stood in for the audience. As we're asking ourselves the same thing. Who are these yo-yos? There was sort of the Greek chorus of these guys, the Nova Corps, going, who are these a-holes? You know, and then so it made it, we were in on the joke. The audience was in on the joke. Captain Marvel is so earnest. Like, what are we supposed to dig into there?
Right.
We don't know yet. We will, but we don't know yet.
I still just find it surprising because, you know, here we are. We've got the MCU's first entry into a female lead movie, something we have never had in the MCU before. And with the energy and the pop that sort of motif generated for Black Panther, that sort of energy and pop that generated for Wonder Woman, you can make the argument that, hey, Wonder Woman already played that card. Wonder Woman captured that thunder already. You can't replicate that. But I am very curious about the lack of excitement generally for this movie at this point. Like, granted, not a lot in the trailers, but damn it, I don't know if that accounts for it all. You know what I mean?
But I agree with you, though. I think that there is a surprising, especially coming off of Infinity War, and you've got Aquaman. You know what I think they're going to do? I think they're going to wait. We're going to get a trailer on the 21st or whatever of December, and it's going to be their kick-ass. Look what we have.
It's going to be their statement trailer,
right? And they're going to make a big statement.
So let me ask you this: let's assume that they are going to deliver a true big statement trailer. That trailer drops. Do you see the anticipation level changing at that point? Because right now I'm not feeling a lot of it. Do you think that trailer dropping, do you think that rights the ship as far as the anticipation and the buzz for it?
Yes. I think it's going to be like seeing that extended Aquaman trailer for people. You know, the craziness of the world, and they're going to show us the Kree and the Skrull and the Skrulls and a lot of mayhem, whether it's intergalactic mayhem or fighting mayhem. They're going to give us a lot more visual buzz. They're going to give us a shot in the arm of what we like. That big, epic, cosmic superhero action that only Captain America can bring. Or Captain America. Captain Marvel can bring. I'm so confused with Shazam and Captain Marvel. Oh,
Captain and Cat. Yeah, I get it. All right, guys, listen. That's the topics that we had for today. But we're going to take a little bit of time here and take some of the questions and topics you guys have submitted. If you want to submit a topic or a question for Robert and I to address here on The Weekly Hero, just jump on Twitter, type out your question or your comment, and just make sure you include in that tweet the hashtag The Weekly Hero. Just hashtag The Weekly Hero. That way we know how to find the stuff you want. And we have picked out 4 questions and comments here today. So let's get on to that first one. And the first question or comment today comes to us from Luke Baxter, who writes, Hello. What do you think will be the most difficult comic storylines to adapt to the big screen? For me, it has to be both Kingdom Come and Crisis on Infinite Earths. Well, I mean, for first thing, Luke, I think there are many, many other storylines that are just, bat crap crazy that it would be inconceivable to ever even hope to bring them to the screen, right? So there are crazier, more impossible stories to shoot than those two. The interesting thing about Kingdom Come to me, I actually don't think Kingdom Come is all that difficult to shoot. I really don't. I think it's a very well self-contained 3-act story that would not theoretically be all that difficult to shoot. To me, the difficulty with Kingdom Come has always been with Venom. You didn't need to know a single thing about Venom to go into Venom and watch Venom. The first Avengers movie, you really didn't even need to, you didn't even have to see Iron Man or the first Captain America to be able to just walk in and watch that movie. It has always felt to me like Kingdom Come, which is probably the most gorgeous cover art in any collection like that. Like, it's some of the most iconic cover art, but it seems to me that Kingdom Come is a type of story that requires a pre-existing level of sophistication from the audience. There's for you to truly get what's going on in there, you have to already be very familiar with a number of these characters and the type of world they live in. And to me, that's what presents a challenge. It's not that Kingdom Come isn't shootable. I just don't know if it's marketable. That's the problem I've always had with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Also, there's so many characters that they introduce in Kingdom Come, like all the young whippersnapper characters. Now, we as comic book readers immediately could buy into those tropes.
Yeah.
We understand what they're doing. And, of course, I love what happens between Captain Marvel, Shazam,
and Superman.
Yeah. It's awesome, which they could do now. Now that
they can.
I think if you ever saw Kingdom Come as a film, it would be stripped down. They would do what they did to like the Dark Knight Returns they used the Doomsday storyline. They used some of the Dark Knight Returns in
they used
Batman,
elements of it.
Yeah, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. I think that they could do something like that with a Kingdom Come film. But again, those Kingdom Come and especially Crisis on Infinite Earths require you've got every single character in the DC universe like ever in Crisis on Infinite Earths. How are you going to possibly do that on film?
Yeah.
You've got literally hundreds of characters. You could do stripped down versions of these things, but not the way they are in those books.
All right, let's move on to our next tweet. And our next tweet today comes to us from EJ Tan, who writes, "What's up, John and Robert? Hope you two are having a great day. And I love the new studio." Well, thank you so much, EJ. Anyways, this question is for Robert. What's your all-time favorite comic book movie of all time? What's your all-time favorite comic book movie of all time? It can be Marvel or DC, hashtag The Weekly Hero. Actually, you know what, Robert? I'm glad EJ asked it. I don't think I've ever actually asked you what your single favorite comic book movie is, and I can't believe I don't know the answer to that question. What's your favorite all-time comic book movie?
It's so weird because it changes. I was having this argument last night on Twitter that somebody was saying that the Dark Knight is the gold standard by which all other comic book movies will be judged. I love The Dark Knight. I think it's incredible. I think, but it's a story that, even though it's completely steeped in Batman and Batman's mythology, it's something that it tries to not be a comic book movie.
Yeah.
You know, it tries to be set in the real world.
It transcends the genre. It really does.
It's more of a Michael Mann film. Like it's the influence of Heat, for instance. The scene in the beginning when Joker rips off the bank. It's kind of like that the bank robbery scene that you saw in Heat. It's that kind of a feel. Whereas Infinity War, to me, was insanity because I never thought I'd see a comic book movie that was so much a comic book movie on the big screen. I never thought I'd see a giant crossover event with all these characters that would work as well as it does. I was moved by it. I cried at the end. You know, I couldn't. I got all choked up.
Right.
I don't want to go, Mr. Stark. You know, and you can't. And I go back and forth. I mean, I think Superman the movie is always going to be probably my favorite.
The original.
The original, because it was the first time I ever saw.
You will believe.
I'll believe a man can fly. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But I was much younger.
Right.
Dark Knight hit me later in life. I thought was great. But Infinity War. And I know this guy's like, oh, it doesn't work as a real movie because you had to have 21 movies before that, or at the time, 19 movies before that for it to work.
Yeah.
True, but that to me makes it even more of a comic book movie because I had been reading hundreds of comic books by the time Crisis came around. So it distilled that essence down. So I think I'm going to say Superman the movie, because it was the first comic book movie that it changed everything. I'm not a fan of the Tim Burton Batman movies. I hate to say I should be more of them, but it's got to be a toss-up between Superman the movie, The Dark Knight, and Infinity War.
I've had different favorites. I mean, obviously because we get new movies all the time, so I have different favorites. X-Men 2 was actually my favorite comic book movie for a very long time. I mean, that movie just crushes it on so many different levels.
So good.
Spider-Man 2, to this day, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2, to this day is one of the greatest. I still have it in my top 10 greatest comic book movies of all time.
Well, and the scene on the train I talked about earlier.
Yes.
One of the great comic book scenes transposed to movies ever done.
Yes. But today, I believe for me, the first Avengers movie is still probably my all-time favorite.
I could see that.
What Joss Whedon and Kevin Feige were able to do with that movie for the first time ever, bringing a collection of individual characters into a team event like that, make it so ridiculously entertaining.
Yeah.
I still remember coming out of the theater at the first press screening, and the press are a jaded, grumpy bunch of people. And I remember being in there, and they were all excited to see the movie, sure. But I remember coming out of that movie, and I remember there were some people visually shaking. They were just, so much adrenaline was pumping through them. It was one of the craziest movie-going experiences, and it's like for almost, and the entire drive home, I remember my wife was with me, and she drove home as I sat in the car trying to send out tweets about what I just saw.
Yeah.
And I'm keep telling her, I can't even process what we just watched. So to me, that is still my all-time favorite one. What it accomplished, it did something that was never done before. And rounding up my top three, in no particular order in the 2 or 3 spot, is The Dark Knight and Logan. To me, those are my 3 favorites right now.
Yeah.
But again, as new films come out, that could change.
But you know, I love what you're saying about the first Avengers movie, because I remember sitting there. I went with some friends, and I was sitting there looking at the screen, not believing what I was seeing. Like I'm like, first of all, I loved it, and I just couldn't believe that they actually made this movie. If they had told me 10 years before that, oh, one day you're going to watch an Avengers movie, and it's going to start, you're going to see a Thor movie and a Captain America movie and an Iron Man movie too, before you see this. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to live in a world where they made an Avengers movie. And sitting there watching it, I could not believe what I saw.
That first moment when Cap was fighting Loki in the street there, and then Iron Man shows up and lands beside Cap, and that first shot you see Captain America and Iron Man standing side by side. First time ever, you're just like, and I remember nudging my wife, she's like, this is history right here. First time ever, live action, these two standing side by. It was nuts.
I mean, the shot, the iconic shot we all seen 100 million times when the camera spins around the entire. That was in the trailer, but seeing that in the movie, I've never been transported to being a child again, to feeling that just unmitigated joy, that nothing is. Unbelievable.
All right, let's go on to our next tweet of the day. And the next tweet comes to us from Joshua Levesque, who writes, "Hey, John and Robert, do you guys think that James Gunn will ever return to social media? Ever since his firing at Marvel Studios, he has not posted on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Loved his personal connection to fans. Hashtag the weekly hero." I'm going to tell you what. There are very few directors who loved engaging with his fans as much as James Gunn did. But I do not believe we will ever see him post on social media again. And you know what? Not only do I not blame him, I would almost counsel him just to stay off social media, because the fact of the matter is he got himself in a lot of trouble. I mean, he put himself at the center of the firestorm and all this. And look, it was his own damn fault. It was. I love James Gunn, but it was his own fault. Would I have fired him over 10-year-old jokes that he clearly didn't mean? No. But I can understand why many other people were completely ticked by it. He had nobody to blame but himself. Granted. But it kind of reemphasizes that not a lot of good is going to come from a famous director putting out tweets. Not a lot of good is going to come out of that. And the reality too is that he is now very cognizant of the fact that you could tweet something that you believe your audience right now would get. Yeah, they would get it. But 7 years from now, the culture could change and they could look back at something you tweeted 7 years ago and now be seen in a totally different light. You know what? James Gunn just got totally burnt. I have considered getting off of social media entirely. Just because of that exact thing. Number one, always afraid, because I'm so stupid. I'm always afraid that I'm going to say something completely dumb, or at least offensively dumb. But also there's this fear that I could tweet out something today that I could think is perfectly innocent, but then somebody's going to bring it up 8 years from now,
right,
when the cultural context has changed, and that could be seen in a certain way, and I'll have my career ruined because of something I didn't think anything about. I mean, I loved watching James Gunn interact with his fans online, but ultimately the harm and the potential harm far outweighs any potential benefit. And I think James has been stung and burned, and obviously he's landed on his feet, but he's been stung and burned by this so bad that I do not anticipate seeing him back on social media.
No, I think all of social media is relatively new as far as human history is concerned.
It really is.
It's been around for, a decade the way it is now.
Yeah.
We don't know where it's going to go. Human beings, we need to evolve, and the way we treat each other online is just horrific. And I think the way Rian Johnson, I look at a guy like Rian Johnson, how he was treated in the wake of The Last Jedi. I'm like, here's a guy who is one of us, cut his teeth on independent movies, claws his way up and makes films. It's so difficult to navigate Hollywood. And then he gets to make a Star Wars movie. Who wouldn't dream of that? And then what happens to him on social media? He gets pilloried and destroyed and crucified and hung out to dry because he made a Star Wars movie that some people didn't like. I mean, it's amazing. We're so used to getting everything we want now as a culture, especially online, that we forget that it's a privilege. And it's a privilege to have a guy like James Gunn who's going to interact with you, his fan base on Twitter. And it's unfortunate that his fan base, obviously, they were hurt just as much as James Gunn was because of that relationship. I mean, it helped the films. I mean, everybody, when you're a fan of a director and he's posting about making a film, you're on his side or her side. You want to see these movies be great. There's like a team esprit de corps that is being created by people interacting with creators online. Unfortunately, then those same people will turn on you if they don't like what you've created.
Yeah, so what have you done for me lately sort of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame James Gunn, like you said, if he didn't come back. He doesn't owe us anything.
All right, let's go on to our final tweet of the day. And our final tweet today comes to us from Lucian Anton, who writes, Both Christian Bale and Ben Affleck are over 6 feet tall. Michael Keaton is 5'8". Why do we, in quotes, want the tallest or biggest guy to play a comic book hero? We just need a good actor. To this day, many of us will still say that Michael Keaton is Batman. What's your response to that?
Well, look, we always believe that superheroes are huge people, larger than life people.
They're portrayed that way. They're drawn that way.
Yeah, I mean, Wolverine's what, 5 feet tall in the comics? And then Hugh Jackman's over 6 feet when he gets to play Wolverine. Everyone's like, Wolverine's a little guy. You know, why is Hugh Jackman playing him? And then, of course, you know, you want the biggest Batman, you want the biggest Superman. But I think it really doesn't matter. I agree with this guy. I think it's all about the actor. You can make the actor look big. Actors, you'll learn this if you start meeting actors. They're always shorter than you think they're going to be, for the most part.
Except for Henry Cavill. He's a big dude.
Armie Hammer and Henry Cavill are both
Armie Hammer's a big dude,
big dudes, strapping, handsome guys. And that's why I love Man from U.N.C.L.E. You know, I thought they were so...
I don't want to take us on a sidetrack here.
Right.
That movie is criminally underrated.
Underrated.
I loved Man from U.N.C.L.E.
So much fun to watch.
Loved that movie.
You know, but yeah, Affleck and Cavill were great. Physically, but that's what we wanted. We want those big physical specimens. I remember when the first Batman came out, people complained. Michael Keaton was pilloried too in the fan press.
Mr. Mom is going to play Batman.
Yeah, he doesn't look like Batman. And then he's wearing that suit. Why does he have to have armor? Why can't he be a big guy? You know, I think that we just want the physical. Look, people don't even look like comic characters. After 300. And you saw what Gerard Butler turned into when he had Leonidas or whatever. People can't sustain that. You know, these poor actors have to go to the gym for 6 months and eat like whatever. They don't have any fun. It's not fun to get your physique in that shape. You know, I mean, but I agree. I think the best actor for the job should get the job.
And, you know, and that's something I've been saying for a long time is the fact that, look, it's understandable because we want our first impression of a character to be that's what the character is.
Right.
You know, it was one of the most ridiculously drawn characters ever. I still remember the first time I looked at a character in a comic book, I said, okay, this is just stupid. It was, and I can't remember which artist it was, but the way they drew Cyclops in like the mid to late 90s. And I just remember Cyclops, whose powers have nothing to do with him being this, but there was no comic book character in history that was drawn like Cyclops. Cyclops had muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles, and he had negative 43% body fat, and he was just this massive, huge dude. It's like, oh, is his power super strength? No, he shoots a laser from his frickin' eyes. I mean, and I just remember that's crazy, but that becomes our impression of the character. And look, I think there's an argument to be made that, hey, get the right body type.
Right.
Like, hey, Ben Affleck's a big dude. So, you know, get a guy who's big. You don't have to go out and get Mr. Olympia. You don't need to go get Triple H to play Batman necessarily. But, you know, at the same time, you don't want some scrawny kid playing Batman either. Just get the right general body type.
Well, look at Hugh Jackman in X-Men 1.
Yes.
In the pit fighting scene at the beginning of the movie. He hadn't even gotten in that great a shape yet because he was cast fairly late in the game. And then look at him in Logan.
Oh, I know.
I mean, look at the difference. It's the same dude, and you're looking at the same physique, but his physique in Logan, they've figured out how to sculpt human beings, actors, into these incredible-looking people. It's just unsustainable, but we love it.
Well, that's one of the reasons Hugh Jackman ultimately said that he gave whenever he's talked about walking away from Wolverine. One of the reasons that always came up, and not always the top reason, but it always came up is, I don't want to do that anymore.
No.
Like the 4 to 5 hours a day of working out, never being able to eat a noodle of pasta or spaghetti, never being able to do this. Like, I'm just tired of it.
Right.
And it is crazy.
It's unsustainable. And look at people complaining when Gal Gadot was cast as Wonder Woman. Oh, she's not big enough. You know, she doesn't have enough big muscles. And it's like people don't look like they're drawn. In real life, people do not look like how they look in comic books. And if they do look like, it's because they went on a special diet the studio paid for 6 months.
I'll admit, when the Gal, well, my biggest problem when Gal Gadot was hired was that she can't act. But aside from that, I was also kind of critical. It's like, I mean, I was like, she's got to be 90 pounds soaking wet. But I mean, what we've learned in Hollywood is that these trainers they have in Hollywood, you give somebody 6 months to a year with the right trainers, and they are willing to sacrifice like Hugh Jackman sacrificed and work and work and work. You can get your body to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, look, I bag on Gal Gadot a lot as an actress. I do. I just don't think she's that good.
She's so endearing.
She is, from all accounts, she is very endearing. But give credit where it's due. the physical transformation she went through. And I can only imagine the hours and hours and hours of physical training she did. The physical transformation she did is nothing short of impressive.
Oh, yeah.
And the commitment and the time and whatever. So I may bang on Gal Gadot once in a while just because I don't think she's that good of an actress. But, I mean, tip your hat, man. I mean, the work she had to have put in to go through that transformation to when she now steps onto screen as Wonder Woman, you can look at her now and go, that looks like Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I broke the floor just saw it too.
Krypton's falling apart.
But it's like, yeah, that looks like Wonder Woman. And I mean, it's impressive. And all these guys, it's unsustainable. Whether it's Hugh Jackman, you know, Henry Cavill talked about his workout routines he had. Josh Brolin talked about the ridiculous workout routines he had to go through.
Look at Chris Evans' shoulders.
Yeah.
You know, or Hemsworth, man. Look at that dude. Amazing. These guys are I'd love to look like that, but it's unsustainable.
So that, you know, I remember hearing Chris Evans talk about this, but you know, he probably had to work for 8 months for that one shot in Civil War where he's chasing Bucky. Bucky gets into the helicopter. That one shot of him holding on to the rim and then doing the hand grip change to make it the bicep shot.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
I remember you could hear every woman in that place swoon when he did that. So it worked. But you know, he had to put in probably 6 to 8 months of work just on that one bicep shot for that one shot in the movie. But it was impressive.
It's like Daniel Craig in Casino Royale when he gets up out of the water when he's in the Bahamas, you know, and you're looking at him going,
I've seen Daniel Craig. He doesn't normally look like that, but he looked chiseled. Just chiseled. Anyway. All right, guys, that will do it. You've come to the back page now of this issue of the Weekly Hero. We hope you enjoyed the read. Thanks a lot for being here with us, guys. Hey, listen, don't just watch the show. Participate in the show. Jump down to the comments section. Keep the conversations going. Talk about your favorite comic book movies all the time. Where do you think the buzz for Captain Marvel is going to go? What are you expecting from the Venom universe? Your favorite thoughts of Stan Lee, and what are your expectations like for this Marvel or this DC Arrowverse crossover coming up right now? Talk about all those things below, and let's share the joy together. I, of course, want to thank my co-host today, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, and your Robservation show. Where can people find you? And more importantly, where can people find this show?
Oh, well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett. And you can find Robservations Episode 1, Middle-Age Cosplay, on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work. It's and the Burnett Work is one word.
I remember I started the first episode saying I've got about 5 minutes, I'll watch 5 minutes of it. Blew off what I was going to do and just watch the whole thing through. Make sure you watch the first episode of Robservations. You guys can follow me on Twitter, simply at John Campea. And of course, at the John Campea Show every weekday morning, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll do it for us, guys. The shop is now closed. Thanks for being here. My name's John Campea, and we'll talk to you later.